Hi, I'm Nick Shell with Family Friendly Daddy Blog. Now you're watching this video because you're a parent. You want to find out if Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice is appropriate for your child to see. That's why you're watching this video. I need to get into character. There we go. So is this movie appropriate for your child? I'm gonna go ahead and tell you the answer. I don't know. That's the number one answer, is I don't know. I would never tell any parent that a certain movie is appropriate for their kid, because who am I to know? Maybe it's not. Now, I'm okay with my kid watching certain PG-13 rated movies. Titanic's not one of them. He's definitely not watching Titanic any soon. Do you remember what's in that movie? Seriously, that was PG-13? There's a lot of stuff in that movie I don't want my kids seeing. Well, this movie, Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice, is rated PG-13. But it's a matter of finding out, is it too inappropriate? Is it a movie you, as the parent, feel okay with your child watching? Okay, so let's get to work. Let's start with language. Obviously, I'm not gonna actually say the words. I wanna keep things clean for everyone, and I don't use that sort of language either. So I'm here to let you know which words you'll probably find to be inappropriate in this movie, especially for younger audiences. So there's two uses of GD, you know what I mean by that, as far as asking God to curse this situation, because that's literally how it translates. There's two uses of just saying God's name in vain, just saying the name, which I'll say it, God is who I'm referring to, but it's a whole other thing when you say his name, just saying it in vain. That's one of the 10 commandments, and I'm not cool with using God's name in vain. I'll talk about God, but I'm not just gonna blurt his name out. And so that happens twice, in addition to the two GDs, which again, GD is basically saying, God, take this situation and send it to eternal judgment. That's what GD translates as. There's one vain use of the name of Christ, someone saying the name without any kind of religious or spiritual context. There's also one vain use of the name of Jesus. There's one vain use of the word hell. Now, the reason I say it that way, I know that sounds kind of awkward. What does a vain use of hell mean? It means just saying the word hell without being in connection with anything biblical or spiritual. It's one thing if they were talking about a literal hell or something like that. They're not. They just say the word. The same thing with, and again, I'm keeping things family friendly, so the D word, however you want to do that. Of course, that's short for damnation, which is short for basically GD. Anytime you see that word, it's short for GD, which is saying God send this situation to eternal judgment. So there's one use of the D word. There's two uses of SOB, and you know what I mean by that. There's two uses of that. I'm trying to keep this family friendly without being too cheesy, but there's one use of the word, I'll just say bells, but without an E, an A instead, referring to a certain part of a man. They're being literal because they're talking about a woman saying, you sure have some, there you go. So as far as language goes, as far as phrases goes that can be offensive, there you go. Now, if you're not a religious person, then all that stuff I said about God, name in vain and all that, that probably doesn't mean anything to you, right? I mean, I guess it does. I don't know how that works. But for me, a guy who is a Christian, those uses of God's name actually are, to me, worse than any other curse word because it's in the 10 commandments. Don't use my name in vain. So to me, that's worse. But either way, this is all inappropriate language for younger audiences. So now you know the breakdown of that. So let's talk about violence. The real reason this movie is rated PG-13. Batman vs Superman, a fight to the death. So it's gonna be violent. Let's talk about how violent it is. It's over 2 hours of violence. However, let's talk about what kind of violence it is. It's action violence. So it's punching, it's kicking. Yes, there's a lot of guns in this movie. But is there blood and gore? Not so much. When you do see blood, it's more of the after effect of something that already happened. The violence reminds me more of 1960s westerns where they're shooting all over the place and then they fall and you assume they're dead. So there's a lot of violence. It's just not bloody and not gory. So let's talk about sensuality, nudity, that sort of thing. There is a corpse shown. It's a male, and it's of course of Superman's race, so it's this alien, but it looks just like a human male, and he's naked. You never see anything explicit because there's always some kind of way to block it out. Like, for example, someone's looking at the corpse, so their body, the camera's behind them, so their body shields you from the pelvic area. So no graphic nudity is shown, but it's very clear there's a naked man there. There is a scene in which Batman has rescued these young girls that were victims of human trafficking. Batman rescues those girls, but just that scenario itself, that it shows fully clothed girls, but they're they're held in this cell behind bars, and it is explained that it's human trafficking is what's going on. So obviously it's a very good cause that Batman is fighting for, but it's a very adult situation. Bruce Wayne, who's Batman, at one point in the movie, it shows him waking up sort of in the middle of the night, and there's a woman next to him in bed. She's never explained. She's not part of the story at all. In fact, I don't even remember seeing her face. She's fully clothed. She's got a sheet over her. It's almost like you just see her legs and her feet, but you know she's there. So that's to imply that Batman had a relationship with a woman that was casual. As far as Wonder Woman, let's talk about kind of this barbaric sort of outfit on. So just look at a Google image Wonder Woman and you can see what she's wearing, as far as if you think that that's too revealing. Lois Lane is in a bathtub, one of those old school bathtubs, and her knees are sticking out of the water and her head and shoulders are sticking out of the water. The water covers anything that would be explicit. So you're basically seeing her head, her shoulders, and her knees. Clark Kent walks in, Superman, whatever you want to call him, he walks in while she's in that bath, and they start talking. Not any kind of explicit conversation, but they're talking while she's in the tub. And by the end of the scene, he gets into the bathtub while he is fully clothed, and then the camera sort of pans away, and then it shows some water overflowing the tub. And then the scene ends as the camera switches away. So again, nothing explicit is shown or anything. It's implied. The last category I want to cover is religious blasphemy. Now, I know that may sound like a weird category, but I'm keeping in mind that I assume a lot of people watching this video are Christians. With that being said, I want you to be aware of anything that you might feel is blasphemous. Because that's kind of one of the themes of this movie, not blasphemy so much, but there's an ongoing theme of comparing Superman to God. Now, they're not saying that Superman literally is God, but they're comparing Superman to God. And basically, is God out of control? Is God good? You know, they're talking about Superman, but they're saying God instead of Superman. I remember at one point Lex Luthor himself says, God is as good as dead. Again, not talking about God, he's talking about Superman. As far as, oh, I've got him now kind of thing. So that's it. That's the content of this movie, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. You've heard everything that could possibly be inappropriate for a younger audience member. And now you have to decide, am I going to take my kid to see this movie? My job, of course, was just to provide the content and let you be the judge, because you're the parent, not me. This is Nick Shell with Family Friendly Daddy Blog.